The UK employment market is sitting on a ticking time bomb that's about to explode, and when it does, millions of British workers won't know what hit them. While politicians parade around talking about economic growth and recovery, behind closed doors, they're preparing for an unemployment crisis that could make the 2008 financial crash look like a minor inconvenience. What you're about to discover isn't just disturbing, it's information that certain people in power desperately don't want you to know. Because once you understand what's really happening to Britain's job market, you'll realise why so many wealthy individuals are already making moves to protect themselves while ordinary workers are being left in the dark dot right now. The government claims unemployment sits at just 4.3%, but this figure is one of the most misleading statistics ever pushed on the British public. Here's what they're not telling you. There are currently 9.3 million people of working age who aren't in employment and aren't counted in unemployment figures. These are the economically inactive people who've given up looking for work entirely because the system has failed them so completely. When you add these hidden unemployed to the official numbers, the real unemployment crisis affects nearly 1 in 4 working age adults in Britain. But it gets worse. Among young people aged 16, 24, the real unemployment rate when you include those who've stopped looking reaches a staggering 31%. Almost 1 in 3 young Britons can't find proper work. Graduate unemployment has hit its highest level in 15 years, with 42% of recent university graduates either unemployed or working in jobs that don't require a degree. These aren't lazy people. These are qualified, educated individuals who've done everything society told them to do, only to find there's nothing waiting for them. The government knows these numbers would cause panic if they were widely understood, which is exactly why they bury them beneath layers of statistical manipulation. And here's something that should terrify every working person in Britain. The employment that does exist is increasingly worthless. If you think having a job means you're safe, think again, because what's happening to wages will shock you to your core. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to stay informed about the economic storm that's heading our way, because trust me, you need to know what's coming next for Britain's economy and housing market. The wage crisis destroying British workers is far more severe than any politician will admit. While they boast about minimum wage increases, here's the brutal reality. Real wages, when adjusted for true inflation, have fallen by 18% since 2019. The average British worker now has less purchasing power than they did in 2007. We've gone backwards by nearly 2 decades, but the official inflation figures are themselves a lie. When you factor in real housing costs, energy bills and food prices, actual inflation for working families runs at nearly double the official rate. A salary of £35,000 today buys what £24,000 bought just 5 years ago. Middle-income earners are being systematically wiped out. Zero-hour contracts now trap 1.1 million workers in employment that offers no security, no benefits, and no future. Another 3.7 million are stuck in part-time work when they desperately need full-time hours. The gig economy that was supposed to offer flexibility has become a prison where workers have all the responsibilities of employment but none of the protections. Even those with seemingly good jobs are drowning. Professional salaries haven't kept pace with the cost of living, forcing teachers, nurses, and other essential workers to use food banks. In London, workers earning £50,000 a year qualify for housing benefit because rent consumes over 60% of their take-home pay. This isn't sustainable. It's economic slavery dressed up as employment. And while British workers struggle to survive on wages that don't cover basic living costs, something even more sinister is happening in corporate boardrooms across the country. Major employers are preparing for a mass exodus from Britain that will devastate the job market beyond recognition. The recent national insurance increases aren't just another tax, they're the final straw that's forcing businesses to make brutal decisions. Every single major employer I've spoken to is planning significant redundancies in 2025. We're talking about cuts of 20 to 30% of their workforce, and that's the conservative estimate. International companies are already moving operations to Ireland, Netherlands, and Eastern Europe, where employment costs are lower and regulations less punitive. 3 major banks are planning to shift their entire back-office operations abroad by mid-2025, eliminating 45,000 UK jobs. The tech sector, once Britain's bright hope, is hemorrhaging positions as companies realise they can hire 3 developers in Poland for the cost of 1 in London. But here's the part nobody's discussing. Artificial intelligence is about to eliminate entire categories of British jobs at a speed nobody anticipated. Customer service, administration, basic accounting, content creation, even junior legal work. All of these roles will largely disappear within the next 18 months. Companies aren't waiting for gradual change. They're implementing AI solutions right now that will replace hundreds of thousands of workers. The retail apocalypse that everyone predicted is finally here. Major high street chains are planning to close 40% of their remaining stores in 2025, with job losses in the hundreds of thousands. Online shopping hasn't created anywhere near the employment it's destroyed, and automated warehouses mean even those jobs are disappearing. Manufacturing, already on life support, faces complete collapse as energy costs make UK production unviable. And when these jobs vanish, they're not coming back. The government knows this employment catastrophe is coming, but they're more concerned about property values than people, and the connection between the two is about to create a perfect storm. The employment crisis is creating a property disaster that will destroy Britain's housing market in ways most people can't even imagine. When mass unemployment hits, mortgage defaults will explode. Banks are already quietly preparing for default rates to triple by mid-2025. Internal documents from major lenders show they expect 400,000 households to fall into serious arrears within the next year. But they're not telling customers this because it would trigger a panic sell-off that would crash the market overnight. Landlords are facing a tsunami of rent arrears as tenants lose their jobs. Current data shows 14% of tenants are already behind on rent, but that number could reach 35% when the full employment crisis hits. The eviction ban discussions happening in Parliament aren't about protecting tenants. They're about preventing hundreds of thousands of people from becoming homeless simultaneously, which would create social chaos the government couldn't control. Young people are already completely locked out of property ownership, but what's coming will ensure an entire generation never owns homes. With mass unemployment looming, banks are tightening lending criteria to levels not seen since the 1970s. Soon, you'll need a 30% deposit and proof of employment in a protected sector just to be considered for a mortgage. The buy-to-let market that many relied on for retirement income is about to implode as tenants can't pay and property values crater. Estate agents are privately warning clients to sell investment properties now, before the crash becomes obvious to everyone. The government sees all of this coming, which is why they're desperately implementing secret measures that reveal just how bad they expect things to get. But that's not even the worst part. Behind closed doors, the government is preparing for unemployment levels that would cause social breakdown if the public knew what was coming. They're quietly expanding universal credit processing capacity to handle an additional 3 million claims by June 2025. New crisis management teams are being recruited to deal with what they term mass economic displacement events, bureaucratic speak for millions losing their jobs simultaneously. The Department for Work and Pensions has been instructed to prepare for unemployment benefits claims to double within 6 months, but they're being told to delay and deny claims wherever possible to prevent the system from collapsing. Internal briefing documents reveal plans to change the definition of employment to make statistics look better, counting anyone who works even 1 hour per week as employed. They're also planning to reclassify hundreds of thousands of unemployed people as in training or economically inactive to keep them off the official unemployment figures. Mental health services are being warned to prepare for a tsunami of depression and anxiety cases as employment collapses. Suicide prevention hotlines are being expanded, though this isn't being publicised for obvious reasons. Food bank networks have been told to expect demand to triple, while police forces are preparing for civil unrest in areas where unemployment will hit hardest. The military has conducted exercises simulating responses to widespread unemployment riots, particularly in northern cities where job losses will be most severe. These aren't conspiracy theories. These are documented preparations happening right now while the public remains blissfully unaware of the catastrophe approaching. And the timeline for this disaster is much shorter than anyone realises. The employment collapse will unfold in 3 devastating waves that will hit different sectors and regions at different times. Wave 1 begins in January, immediately after companies complete their annual reviews and implement AI replacements. Expect 200,000 job losses in administrative and customer service roles within the first quarter. Finance, insurance, and professional services will shed 15% of their workforce as automation takes over routine tasks. Wave 2 hits in April when the new tax year begins and increased employer costs bite. Manufacturing will essentially cease to exist as a major employer, with 300,000 jobs vanishing. Retail will experience its final collapse, with store closures accelerating beyond anything we've seen. Construction, already struggling, will see projects cancelled and workers laid off en masse as the property market freezes. Wave 3 arrives by September 2025, when the full economic impact becomes undeniable. This is when white-collar professions previously thought safe will face decimation. Middle management positions will be eliminated as companies flatten their structures to survive. Even sectors like healthcare and education will see significant job losses as budgets are slashed. London will initially seem insulated, but will eventually face the worst collapse as financial services abandon the city. Manchester, Birmingham and Leeds will see unemployment rates exceed 20% in formerly thriving business districts. But it's the smaller cities and towns that will be completely devastated. Places like Middlesbrough, Blackpool and Stoke could see effective unemployment rates above 40% when you include the hidden jobless. The social fabric of these communities will completely unravel, creating poverty and desperation on a scale Britain hasn't seen since the 1930s. Yet even as this catastrophe unfolds, there are specific steps you can take to protect yourself, though most people won't act until it's too late. The harsh truth is that traditional employment as we know it is ending, and only those who adapt now will survive what's coming. If you're in retail, administration, customer service, or any routine office job, you need to retrain immediately. These positions will be extinct within 18 months. Skills in AI management, renewable energy, and healthcare support are the only growth areas, but even these will be competitive beyond belief. If you have any savings, convert at least 30% to hard assets now. Not property, which will crash, but commodities and essentials that hold value during economic collapse. The pound will be devalued to manage the crisis, destroying cash savings. Keep enough liquid funds for 6 months of expenses, but anything beyond that needs to be protected from the coming currency debasement. Those with mortgages should consider selling now while prices are still elevated, especially if your employment is in any vulnerable sector. Renting will become cheaper than buying as desperation drives rental prices down, and you'll have flexibility to move for whatever work remains available. Network building is now survival. Your connections will matter more than your qualifications when jobs become scarce. Start developing multiple income streams immediately, even if they're small, because relying on a single employer is now economic suicide. Learn practical skills that can't be automated: plumbing, electrical work, emergency repairs. These will have value when white-collar work disappears. Stock up on essentials now while you still have income. When unemployment explodes, supply chains will struggle, and prices for basics will soar even as wages collapse. The divide between those who prepare now and those who wait will be unbridgeable. Poverty or survival. There won't be a middle ground. The UK employment crisis isn't coming. It's already here, hidden beneath manipulated statistics and government propaganda. When the truth becomes undeniable, panic will set in, but by then it will be too late for most people to protect themselves. The wealthy already know this, which is why they're quietly moving assets abroad and preparing for societal breakdown. What you do in the next few weeks will determine whether you're among the prepared few or the desperate many. This isn't pessimism. It's reality that those in power don't want you to see until it's too late to react. The signs are everywhere if you know where to look, and now you do. The question is, will you act on this knowledge, Or will you be another casualty of Britain's hidden depression?